Okay, so here we are in the Epic launcher, and what we're going to do is we're going to launch 4.26. I have two, but I believe we'll be using one. But just whatever is determined we are going to use, that's the one you want to download. So we're pretty consistent across the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit launch. And what that's going to do, let's turn that off because we don't need it. It's going to load up the Unreal Editor. Okay, so now that this is launched, it gives us some options. If you had recent projects, you'll be able to open them, right? But what we want to do is it gives you these options here that allow you to open up different things. We're going to go into games. Go ahead and hit next. And it allows us to really pick something to learn from or to kind of have a springboard on. So what we're going to do for now is we'll just click on top down and we'll hit next. Now in here it's saying it's going to give you some options of what you want to do. We're going to keep everything default with our blueprints, our maximum quality, and we're not going to turn on ray tracing. So we'll keep that off. We'll go ahead and name our project. And we'll just call it example level for now. So I'm going to go ahead and create the project. Oh, it looks like I have another version already open, so that's okay. It'll just open that up. And while that's loading, let me just pause it till it's done. Okay. So here we are. We're moving around in our screen. I'm just going to talk real quickly just about navigation. So there's some things that I'd like to change in my settings because I don't love the panning in Unreal. So right now, middle mouse button is going to let me pan, but it doesn't quite work the way I want it to. So I always come in here. And I'm going to go ahead to advanced settings. And I'm just going to make sure that, oh, this is kind of big. Let me make this a little smaller. I always make sure that my middle mouse pan is inverted. I always want to do that. I'll say set as default. Yes, yes. Okay. So I always want that in there. If it doesn't set it to default, and you don't have to do this, this is just what I like to do because I like having the pan feel more like Maya or 3ds Max or really any other 3D program that there is. So now that I have that, it moves more like the software I'm used to using. So that's a change that I like to put in. So let's talk a little bit more about our navigation. So if my middle mouse button will let me pan if I push it down, and it lets me scroll when I use it. Zoom when I scroll on my middle mouse button. So if I left click and move around, it lets me orbit. If I right click and move around, it lets me orbit as well. If I right click and hold down Alt, it will allow me to zoom in as well. If I hold that, my right click, and if I use my WASD, it'll let me move around like that by right clicking. Also by holding down, I'm just going to hold down the right click. Q makes me go down, and E lets me go up. So that's some navigation there as well. Like most pieces of software, if I select something and hit F, it will let me orbit around that one object. And really, that's how we navigate inside of Unreal. Now let's talk a little bit about how we move. This stuff is pretty general, pretty basic. Right up here we have our move, rotate, scale, and just like any other piece of software, I can move stuff on each axis. If I hold in the middle, it'll let me move it on 2. If I go to my scale, I can do it. And you can see it in this instance, whoops, you can see that we have this like little dome here. And if we look on each arc, that allows me to rotate on that axis. If I go down here, I can rotate on that axis. If I go here, I can rotate on that axis, right? Scaling, pretty standard. If I want to go on 2 of them, I can by just going in here and selecting on both of them. You can see that there's a little line between 2 axes that will allow you to scale it on 2 of them. If I grab it on 1, I can scale it just on 1. So let's see, right up here, we can, we'll come back in here. I'll get back to that. So right here, right now, we have grid snapping. So if I move this thing, it can snap to the grid, right? If I click on this and set it up to surface snapping, when I move this thing, it'll snap to a surface, which can be pretty cool. Let's bring that back there though. I'll turn that off. I don't use that too much. And you can change how you want that to snap by degrees. Right, and you'll see it when I go to my rotate. When I rotate this, it's doing it in increments of 10. You can see that little number 10 is right up there as well, right? That's my snap. If I turn it off, right, turn it on, I'll be in pretty good shape. And if I come here, so this is for our movement. I think I kind of messed it up a little bit, right? So if I go into my movement, it'll do it on per my grid. And then this is for rotating. And this is snapping for scale. So it allows us to snap for each one that we want there. This little guy here allows my camera speed. So if I come in here, I can change that. If I want it to be really fast, it'll move a little bit faster. And let's see if I come in here. You can see how fast I move. I'm holding down my right mouse button and moving in. And that's how fast I'm moving. If I come in here and bring it back down, let's say down to 2, and I hold that down, way slower. So you can control that as well. And we'll go back to about 4. That was pretty good. And that other button down here will allow you to scale that up and down. So you can move a little faster as you move. All right, so now we've just gone over how we can navigate, how we move and scale and rotate objects. So the next part we'll go over will just be about what everything else in our UI is.